Hello and welcome back to Outside the Box, an MLS podcast. My name is Wanners.
This is Daniel.
I'm Jeremy.
I'm Joss.
And we're back with some more Major League Soccer hot takes, some more discourse for you as we recap each and every game from the regular season. Matchday 3 just concluded. There's a lot of teams in the win, draw, loss, kind of one of each. There's a lot of unbeaten teams. There's a lot of triple loss teams out there, and only 2 teams still remain with a perfect record. And we may as well, I kind of want to change the format a bit. I know I usually go from the match day there from the most recent match, count us all the way back to the first match. But, I think it's only fair we start off with the 2 teams that are still perfect to start the season, especially given the fact that, yes, I gave one of them a lot. Both these teams I ranked really low. We're talking about Philadelphia and Vancouver Whitecaps, one Eastern Conference team, one Western Conference team. Let's start first with Philadelphia. Now, on that match, who did I have on there? I think I had Jeremy on that one, if I'm not mistaken. Jeremy, what did you make of that New England match versus Philly? And tell me what you're feeling about Philly to start the year.
I'm going to go ahead and call that another deserved win for the Philadelphia Union. They probably should have had 2 goals in the first half to begin with. They didn't score their first goal until Baribo put them ahead in the 76th minute. But the main thing from the first half that I saw was just a completely wasted chance from Daniel Gazdag, right in front of the goal. He continues to fascinate me because you can tell he's an unbelievable, he's not a true creative 10 in MLS, but he's more of a second striker, late runner into the box kind of guy, goal threat 10, which
right.
I think works really well for Philadelphia. Plus, he's lights out on penalties unless it's a high leverage situation, and I find that hilarious. But for that game, I'm really, really, really just thinking about how Philadelphia, they didn't dominate possession, but they dominated the attacking phase of play. And that's what happens when you play the Bradley Carnell style of murder ball. They made it really hard for New England to get settled, but another reason why New England couldn't get settled is because 10 minutes in, their top offseason acquisition, Leonardo Campana, who now is the highest allocation money transfer fee in the league, because this was done before the cash market got implemented. He went off 10 minutes in. He got hurt. So I'm thinking more for New England long term, now you have Maxi Urruti, who's going to get serious game time up top. I don't think they've scored a goal yet either, New England. So they're in a lot of trouble. Yeah, that's right. They haven't scored a goal through 3 games. Now, given one of those was away at Nashville, who are historically tough defensively. One was at home against Columbus, and then the other one was at home against Philadelphia. This is a pretty tough opening to the season that New England has. And I can't see a winnable game on their schedule until May 3rd when they travel to Toronto. So,
yikes.
This is... I've spoken already about how this is year 2 Caleb Porter. It's sowing the seeds for the squad that he wants. Next year is going to be the year to probably watch out for this team, if Porter can even get there. But at the same time, you're judged based on what you can do right now. And both of these past 2 home games for New England, probably winnable on paper, but they didn't. They didn't even score a goal. And now, when you look at their schedule, that's 6 out of their next 8 on the road, which is horrifying. And I said that or at least at the start of the season, that I think they're still a playoff team. They have to figure that out, but they're going to have a perfect, like relatively speaking, a perfect schedule towards the end of summer into the fall where they're going to have a lot of those home games. So I'm not completely pressing a panic button on New England right now, but I'm very, very close to doing it. And they should probably score a goal because scoring goals is fun and it brings confidence to your attack. Meanwhile, Philadelphia, complete opposite side of that coin. They've been scoring tons of goals, including Mr. Tyberibo, who has scored in all 3 of his team's games so far, including a hat trick against Cincinnati that we covered last week, and then getting the eventual winner against New England this past weekend. I'm still worried about their center back depth, but you couldn't have asked for a better start at the same time. There were still tons of questions about this team, but I think they've done a pretty good job answering them. I think Quinn Sullivan, throughout the summer, there are going to be some European clubs looking at him. Philly, they like to sell their youngsters. So is this a case of Philly deciding to cash in when Sullivan's stock could be the highest, or maybe trying to hold on to him and get a higher fee either from interleague or from a different club in the winter? That's going to be interesting. But yeah, I don't see there's a ton of holes in Philadelphia right now, at least from their starting 11. It's just about whether or not they can continue this momentum.
One big supporter of Philadelphia was Daniel, and Daniel's definitely coming through on the vibes. And right now, it's got to feel like Philadelphia is the most vibes team. I know Vancouver is up there with them, also on a perfect record. We'll get to them, of course. But Daniel, what are you seeing out of Philly? Do you still kind of stand by your statement there that they're gonna keep going? Because for me, I'm kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Really, when it comes to Philadelphia, I'm like, I want to be sold, but something about it is just, I don't know. What do you think, Daniel? Can you maybe sell this team a bit more to me, a person that's still kind of holding on to my my short stocks of Philadelphia?
I'm glad you asked me to sell it to you. So, if you had to pick between a team that spends little to no money but always finds a way to score goals, or a team that spends $50 to $60 million on its attack and can't score goals, which one would you have an easier time supporting?
I mean, you know me, man. I love goals, so
There you go. And you don't just love goals; you love value for the bargain, Mr. Juaners.
yes,
So,
ideally.
if you were going to get the best value out of a team right now, it's going to be the Philadelphia Union. Honestly, jokes aside, they're just really fun to watch. It's always fun to see a team that really does spend so little money. I mean, it was a big deal that they just had a $3 million transfer. Well, I think I saw something where that $3 million transfer was like worth as much as their previous 2 years transfer budget combined. So, and so, someone can fact check me if I'm wrong there, but I mean, it's really fun to see a team succeed that way. You can see that they still play well through their core, even though half of it was decimated in the offseason this past year. That still does exist. And then Ty Barabal is really coming to his own. The thing that makes me nervous, and you brought it up before the season started, is one, I think we might have underrated them a little bit as a whole. A bubble team is where I had them. You guys didn't have them making the playoffs, but I think that's because I think that's because we might have overhyped some of the more middle of the pack teams in the East and didn't think that those scrappier teams could push through. But they're kind of showing early on that they might be able to. But what you mentioned before the season even started is their depth at the center back position. If we're watching Nathan Harriel play center back in week 10, they're going to be in trouble. But yeah, right now, just enjoy it, Philadelphia fans. They're fun to watch.
Gonna go over to Josh because I did have him on the Vancouver side of things. Josh, how are you feeling about Vancouver this season? Is it to me, it's a big surprise that they're even in this position. I don't know if they'll be. I don't know generally the CCC vibes over there because they did rotate against Tigres, and got a 1-1 draw at home, and then played full strength against Montreal here. But what are you seeing out of Vancouver, and kind of what can you tell us about them?
I agree. I wasn't not expecting Vancouver to 3 games in be undefeated, especially with their packed schedule with the Champions League, and I mean with firing Vanni Sartini and bringing in Jesper Sorensen, it's kind of they're surprising to me. Obviously this past weekend they strolled to a 2-0 win against the Montreal Impact, a Montreal Impact team that has not played at home yet because, as they say in Montreal, hold on, let me get the translation. Hold on. Il fait froid à Montréal, which means it's cold in Montreal. So, for all of you French speakers out there, do not comment if that was correct or not.
We're going international, bro.
Is.
We need the French coming in because we're going international.
Yeah. So a Montreal team that hasn't played at home in 3 weeks and are one of the teams that, as mentioned in the intro, are loss. And I can't think of any others off the top of my head that are like that.
Don't you worry.
But yeah, Vancouver with the Whitecaps, great performance, 2-0. You love to keep a clean sheet. You love to keep a clean sheet at home. You love to get a win over a Canadian rival. I think that's all something that Vancouver are really, really striving for. And I just want to say, it was nearly a perfect game for them. Ryan Gauld went off in the 24th minute with an injury, and I think he'll be out until the middle of May. He's expected to miss a few weeks, which is going to be a massive loss for the Whitecaps. He's obviously such an important player for them. But overall, you can't ask for much more in a performance. 2-0, and you get Laborda scoring. You get Tate Johnson on the score sheet. Your fullbacks are your goal scorers, which is kind of a theme across MLS this weekend, as we'll touch on later. But I also want to shout out Vancouver Whitecaps goalie Takaoka. Ever since he joined the league, I've been a fan of his. I feel like he's been underrated. I feel like he's been a really good pickup for them. And this season he's off to another flyer, another clean sheet, and Vancouver flying. As for Montreal, that is their 3rd loss in a row. This time their 2nd game in a row where they haven't scored. So things are kind of looking a little dicey, but it's a long season, and like I said, they haven't even played at home yet because, like I said, it's cold in Montreal. So the jury's out on how well they can do. I'm a believer that if you can win all your home games, then as long as you look fine away, maybe get a draw here or there, a win is especially good. But if you can win all of your home games or most of your home games, then you should be fine as the season goes on. But yeah, Vancouver Whitecaps surprising, and Philadelphia Union surprising me as well. I was among their haters, and so it's good. I'm eating my words.
So
do you guys think?
Tell me.
Sorry, just with on Vancouver real quick. I feel like 2022, 2023, and 2024, they do this thing where they get really, really hot, and then they'll lose 6 or 7 straight. Do you guys think they have the horses to kind of break through that this year?
Well, this is what I was going to touch on when Vancouver came up, because right now they are undefeated. They've won all 3 of their games. Those teams that they've beaten are currently 24th, 29th, and 30th. They're bad teams. I know the Timbers are in there. That's a little bit of a spoiler for later. The Timbers are not good. So, if I look at the rest of their schedule coming up, now keep in mind they have to go to Monterrey. That game is tomorrow. We're recording on Tuesday. That's going to be a very, very tough game for them. I don't expect them to win, especially now that Gauld is out. But if you look at their games within the league, that could actually be a blessing in disguise for them to get eliminated from CCC this early, because they have to go to Dallas. They then host Chicago. They go to Toronto, and then they have 2 straight home games against Colorado and Austin. They go away to St. Louis and Minnesota, and then it's May. That's not a very tough run of games, and there isn't the only serious road trip in there, as in travel wise, is Toronto, which is actually an early game on a Saturday. So that's going to be really interesting to see how they handle that. But Toronto, again, isn't very good. I still think they're the worst team in the league. So that run that you've mentioned where they could lose like 6 or 7 in a row, I can see that coming in June to July, where they have 5 straight road games against both the LA clubs, Colorado, Houston in mid-July in a midweek, which is going to be a sweat fest. And then they have to go to San Diego to close that week. So there's a lot of space here for them to build some momentum. But it's also worth noting that I don't think they've played anyone good yet. And I want to see how they're going to play on Saturday, even though it's going to be a short week after the Monterrey game, when they have to go to Dallas, who are getting better week by week. And I want to see, I'm really interested to see the result in that game, and most importantly, how Vancouver plays, because they've played 2 full games this year. That's 11v11. And those are the 2 games against number 29 and 20 and 30. So I'm not fully bought in on Vancouver yet. I agree with Daniel. I feel like a skid is coming, and that skid could come sooner rather than later, depending on the severity of Gauld's injury. But as of right now, they have earned being second in the Shield table. It's not going to last, but it's there. And congratulations to them, because they should be happy with that.
So, Jeremy, is the game this weekend against Dallas, is that like your sort of this is the game you're looking out for to see if Vancouver's a good team or not?
Yes.
Is this your benchmark?
This is the first real like litmus
unfair,
test for them.
I think that's
That's
fair,
true,
though,
because they're on a
Gold's
short
gone and
week.
White's gone. Yeah.
And they're on a short week.
Yeah, I think fatigue is going to be a bit
They
of an
might be
issue
on a
there.
short week, but they've been on a short week for every single week this season. They have been.
Fair.
And they've still been able to win all of their MLS games.
Well, I will say they have been rotating quite a bit, and I think I for one think the CCC stuff could easily just as be, because who was their first CCC opponent? It wasn't
Saprissa.
So I think the Saprissa one is a bit a bit bigger of a show there. I say, because here's the thing, we're talking as if Vancouver is going to get eliminated in the CCC. Anything could happen. I mean, last week, it wasn't too far ago, me and Daniel were on Twitter, arguing about Columbus and LAFC. And right now, Columbus is 2-0 at home. So it's 90 minutes is a long time. 90 minutes, even longer. So I am willing to kind of give Vancouver as much of a leash here, especially with a new coach. But yeah, the shoe should drop, for them. I mean, it's 2 teams here that of the 2, Philly definitely have the track to, go on and be prominent players. But for me, it's more of the long game for them. It's like, yeah, let's revisit Philly in August, in September, right after a Leagues Cup, But I'm gonna ask y'all quick fire. If you of the 2 teams, which one is finishing in a higher position? So I'll go with Daniel. Of Vancouver and Philly, who do you believe is finishing in a higher position? Philly. Josh?
Philly.
And am I assuming the same, Jeremy?
I'm going Philly, but not because of, not to discount Vancouver or anything. I just don't believe the East is as strong as the West is. So it's more of like a strength of conference.
Mine's kind of like a coaching take. I think Bradley Carnell's probably a better coach than Sorensen, and it's his first year at St. Louis, they won the West. I'm feeling kind of like he's just got something for that first year. He's got something magic, and we've seen it so far for the Union.
I'm going to keep shorting that Philly stock just because I dug myself that hole. And so, I'm fine with being super wrong about the table position of them not being in 15th. I can move on from that. But I'm going to stick to Vancouver here. Just because I think they have
You
the
had
depth.
them at 15 too.
That
you
is
had them
true.
at 15 too.
Both the teams here that are perfect. I had at 15. So I don't know what that says. I think that should wrap up the podcast, honestly. But we're gonna keep on rolling. Let's talk. Let's now go back to the standard format. Let's start with the most recent MLS game that occurred over the weekend. Another Sunday Night Soccer featuring LA Galaxy. Jeremy was kind of opining about, this is another Sunday night game, and it's not really night vibes because it's bright and beautiful Carson, California. But another Sunday night game, another boring broadcast, another schlacking of the LA Galaxy. St. Louis coming out and kind of showing out their ability to win on the road. You ever seen that before, Joss? Let's start with Daniel, man. Or not Daniel. Sorry. Let's have Joss say a little good things about St. Louis here. What'd you make of that game, man?
You want me to say good things about St. Louis? God, okay.
One good thing.
I can do that. I'm sorry,
I don't think you can,
St.
actually.
I can. St. Louis have a good goalie.
There you go.
Roman
There it
Burke's
is.
a good goalie.
Yeah, he stood out. Because
I'm good.
Here's the thing about LA, that LA match, like I say schlacking, but they put up a good, I think the finishing just wasn't on their side, and it was for St. Louis. They made the most of their match. They're curious to hear the rest of the panel's take here, opening the floor to the rest of the crew. What do you guys think about this one?
I only have one thought on it. And did you guys see that video of Marco Royce sitting in front of the goal as his man scored?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that dude needs to hang it up. He just, I don't know. I don't know. He looks much better when Royce is in the mid. Not when Royce is when Ricky Pooch is in the midfield with him. But he looks slow when he has left. And when he's left to be the dynamic playmaker, he looks slow. He definitely does not look like any semblance of himself at Dortmund even 2 years ago. And I guess that's just the product of aging. But that was tough.
You could tell he wants to play with Ricky Pooch, not these guys.
Yes,
because
it's very evident.
My biggest takeaway from this one is on the St. Louis side, because last week I talked about it. Joao Klaus, we're about to near a full year. 2 months away for him to go a full year without scoring in MLS. I think there was a moment in the game when Marcel Hartel is, gliding with the ball in the attacking channel. You have Joao Klaus showing for it, like an easy layoff pass, maybe get him a shot. It wasn't like a clear-cut effort, right? Hartel just ignores him and dribbles right into his space, gets the shot off either way. And I immediately tweeted, damn, St. Louis completely iced Joao Klaus, because he it looked like 10 men out there, and St. Louis still won. So I don't know what that says, but I don't know if anyone else caught that. But St. Louis, man, they're the team that surprises every time, because this was definitely not the game plan against San Diego. Curious, you have any other thoughts on this one, y'all?
Like to highlight how the Revolution, they haven't scored a goal yet. St. Louis hasn't allowed a goal yet, and that's been the biggest change from this year to last year. Like that, they were catastrophic defensively at times last year, just disorganized. Not really a good defined center back partnership. Berkey had to do so much extra just to keep those goals out. Now there's actually like a defined defensive setup. And I think that's the biggest change that Olaf Melberg has brought. So even though LA Galaxy's finishing let them down, which of course it will, when you're relying on Christian Ramirez, Miguel Berry to score your goals, your finishing's going to let you down. So that's kind of all I have to say about the Galaxy. I didn't expect them to be this bad, but they are bad, and it's not a great sign when what Daniel said with Royce, when that kind of stuff happens, especially as a veteran leader who's been there and done it in leagues across Europe before. That's ridiculous. Also, I don't know why Vanny is continuing to stick with Novak Mikovic. He's terrible. He's not very good. I feel very comfortable saying that. And I think that if you reinstall John McCarthy, winner of 2 MLS Cups, John McCarthy, the team will get a little bit better.
And an MLS Cup MVP.
And an MLS Cup MVP. Yes, coming in off the bench. So, I don't know why... I don't know why why he's being so stubborn with Mikovic right now. Like, they need points. They need points, especially if they are hell-bent on getting Pooch back this season and still trying to make a playoff run. You need to be at your best defensively until he does come back. So, yeah, I find that very confusing. Also, the Galaxy, they play, oh my god, who is their CCC opponent? Herediano. They play
Herediano.
They play Herediano tomorrow. I don't know how that's going to go. They're down 1-0, but they are coming back home. Their squad isn't very deep. How much are they going to rotate? They need a result. So, because getting knocked out by Herediano would be utterly embarrassing. So, yeah, and then, but they do have a free game this weekend because they come to Portland. So, I'm not too, I wouldn't be too worried about that game if I was them. I'd be more focused on trying to advance in CCC, even though their team just is not good, and it's obviously not the same from where it was last year. But yeah, congratulations to St. Louis for being defensively solid. You got that going for you.
Another team looking for some CCC glory is Inter Miami. Another week of messy load management. Nowhere to be seen in the game here, but even despite a red card for Miami, to who was that to? Who got the red card?
It was their goalie. It was
their goalie,
Ustari.
Because then Rocco Rios Novo, is that how you say it? He came in and kept a clean sheet for the side. Very easy to play against the ball, when you're down 10 men, and that's what they did. I'm looking at the passing networks now, and you can see this is about the highest I've ever seen Charlotte push up the field. They did have that extra man. I'm going to open it to Daniel first, and then the rest of you guys. What'd you make of this game, Daniel? I know Charlotte's your dog in this one, but couldn't get it this time around. What'd you make of it?
Yeah, I think when first off, shout out Keeper Reds. I love Keeper Red cards. They are electric. They changed the game. It's what America's about. So I love it. It was fun to watch, and it was even better to see when it happened for my team, right? It's I thought for sure going into the game, I was like, okay, we get a draw out of this. We're at Miami. That's a good result. Then you get that early red card, and you think to yourself, okay, we can get all 3 points here and solidify ourselves for what is a very, very tough early run, and get some points early and really start the season strong, right?
Nope.
And then Luis Suarez plays a beautiful chip pass to Alonde, and it was a relatively easy goal. And then that's when you see the wheels start to spin a little bit for Charlotte, because it turns out if needing to play possession against a crazy low block and try to be a little bit more artistic with your passing patterns in order to create space, they just weren't able to do it. Really what we saw was Wilfred Zaha gets the ball, he gets triple teamed, then it gets turned over. We saw that over and over and over again. Now we saw Patrick Agyemang missed a sitter. Really, he missed 2, but we'll say he missed 1 that should have drew us level. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's on Dean Smith and it's on the players for not being crafty enough to take 70 minutes worth of play time with them down a man and not make anything of it. Because the chances were there to be had, and they just didn't do anything with it. And it got bad for Miami, and that they were semi-pressed because at half they took out Toto Alvarez. They said, this guy's a problem. We need to get him off the field. So if we can't even take advantage of it when they have defenders on there that they can't trust to actually play disciplined ball, I don't know. I don't know what Dean Smith says to his team in that locker room other than it's just disappointing because they do have the talent. They have the athleticism to stretch the field. They have the talent to be able to move the ball. They have the experience through multiple leagues. I don't know what they need to change in that situation. Maybe the lights were just too bright at 4 p.m. in Fort Lauderdale, but I don't know. I really don't know. What are your guys' take?
Sun too bright, bro. That's really what it was.
I mean, what did you guys make of it?
I think the biggest thing here is you live by Dean ball, you die by Dean ball. Essentially, it helps. I mean, the red card is tough because you think, as you said, that it would help you out, but when the other team can just put 10 behind the ball, a very simple, rudimentary, even Javier Mascherano can't fuck that up. Style of play, right? Like he's still a young coach, and by and large, like the fact that they didn't have to bring on Messi was also kind of the big one there for Charlotte. Because I'm like, if this team can score one on you, smash and grab, and just not even have to play Messi, who is now who has had a whole ass week off, may I say, as the most played player in MLS. He has not played a game this week, right? And so I know if I didn't show up for a week of work, right, I can't just go and say load management like this guy can. But I overall,
spreadsheets.
Yeah, I whether he's needs the extra shopping day to go to Publix or whatever it is that whatever it is Messi needs to be doing. It's not playing soccer because Miami's doing pretty fine without him. Makes you really think there. I'll open up to the rest of the panel. What do you guys think about this one?
They're playing well without Messi again, just like they did last year.
Give him the MVP.
There's not much else to it. If only this team could figure out, how to avoid getting red cards. Which now Mascherano is actually being a little proactive with that by taking Avalos off the pitch early. Because he's a walking dirty foul. But for Charlotte, I mean, I don't have too much to take away from them. This is just, it's just got to be frustrating. I think they just need to figure out what their best 11 is and figure out, how they can counter effectively and play well in possession more than anything. This was the game where you're playing against 10 men against Miami. Where's the dynamic running? Where you can't just only rely on Wilf Zaha to create space. It's a work in progress, but I don't think this result damages any of my preseason thoughts about Charlotte. I don't think it does anything. It doesn't really change my perspective of either team, to be honest.
I think it's got to be very, very concerning for the East that Miami goes down with early reds against two playoff teams in the East, or I guess perceivable playoff teams in the East, in Charlotte and NYCFC, and they manage to get results against both of them. I think that's even more telling about the depth of Miami, I think, and just how good they really are at most positions.
Let's talk about
I'm sorry, I want to say one more thing. I know Jeremy mentioned Wilfried Zaha. I just want to say Wilfried Zaha won the most duels in the match, but he also lost the most duels in the match, and I fucking love that, dude. Get that guy on the ball and just have him do his thing. I love when players are so clearly better that coaches are like, you go out there and do whatever you want. I know that you can deliver, so go and deliver. I know he didn't on this game, but it sounds like he's got that license under Dean Smith, and I can appreciate that.
Let's head over to San Jose, Minnesota. I got Daniel on that one. What I saw from this one was just a very defensive Minnesota United, which I was not expecting. They kept it real close and tight, trying to hit the counterattack with Yeboah and Tani Oluwaseyi. San Jose, for as much as they tried, I thought they played very open at least. They didn't look like they were out of the game. You know, they definitely were chasing. I love how wide they're playing. That is kind of the biggest thing that I've noticed about their play is they are really stretching the field, progressing the ball with Ricketts. You got a midfield duo working nicely together. They were without Hernan Lopez, so we'll see if they really miss him. But first loss of the season against Minnesota, not a bad team to suffer your first loss against. Daniel, what'd you make of that one?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it. You kind of hit the nail on the head there by saying it's not a bad team to lose to. Minnesota United is really, really good. My first takeaway from this game is I never recognized that San Jose has 2 supporter sections. Has anyone noticed that?
Yes, I mean,
no.
I'm kind of familiar with their setup, yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very odd. That was my very first takeaway. That and Lloyd Sam got to call the game. He's the GOAT. He called Charlotte their inaugural year. I freaking love Lloyd Sam. Special place in my heart. So I wrote down probably 10 notes from this game that I thought were all worth talking about. Michael Boxall is the king of cannon throws from, I guess, their third of the pitch into the box. I love that.
Yes.
You don't really see that a whole lot in the MLS, dude. But it's cool to see. He got a freaking cannon on him. That 32nd minute goal by Yeboah was caused by a horrible clearance by Bruno Wilson. You can't have that in a professional league. He went to go cleared out of bounds, and the ball just shot about 40 yards up in the air, right back to the scrum, essentially, which led to Yeboah, which leads to another trend of this game. Yeboah volleyed the goal in, just kind of chipped it in from the box, and
he's awesome.
It seemed like every goal opportunity in this game tried coming off of a volley, and it was kind of electric to see. I mean, half of them weren't on target, but still pretty fun. Espinoza and Pellegrino did a great job. They're a pretty good 1-2 punch in transition. And Daniel is a freak, and he needs to be, because they're not super good on defense. And Minnesota was able to expose that quite a bit. I believe, if I remember reading this right, I have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure Daniel had 7 saves. You guys hyped him up preseason. I was not buying it, but no, he's really good.
You're not talking about yourself, right? You're talking about the goalie.
No, we're talking about the goalkeeper for San Jose. Except he did have this one moment in transition. I don't know if you guys watched the highlights from the game at all, but he took the ball. You know how most keepers, they wind it back with one arm and try to chuck it down the field? He did like a 2-hand overarm throw that almost led to a turnover in another Minnesota transition shot. And I thought that was just crazy to see from a professional goalkeeper. But I loved it. He's a gritty dude. Definitely the MVP for them on Saturday. San Jose does really struggle to defend around the box, and my prediction for them is, unless they change things around in the summer or maybe sign somebody here, at the end of the window, which there's no rumors for that right now. They're going to continue to struggle against more dynamic attacking teams. And because of their inability to really get that ball away from out of their third, I thought St. Clair was really not tested the entire game. He had to make 2 saves, I believe I saw. And Yeboah, this is a note that I think everyone can agree with, but Yeboah is very, very good. He always makes fantastic runs, and he's always in positions. And Longwain is probably, if not one of the best overlapping wingbacks in the league. And he's fun to watch as well. So Minnesota's really, really good. That's my takeaway. And it's nothing against San Jose. San Jose is going to beat who they need to beat. And I probably underrated them personally preseason, simply because it was like a prove it kind of thing, because they haven't been very good for so long. But I mean, they hung around against a very good Minnesota team, and you got to clean up some of those mistakes from your back line. And if you're able to do that, honestly, you're going to win a lot of games. So it was a fun game to watch, even though it was only 1-0.
Now, sticking with you, Daniel, what can you tell us about Salt Lake and San Diego? San Diego kind of proven again they are the road team that they are, getting another 3 goals on the road against Salt Lake, who, as I said last week, is my fraud team. They finally came up against a well-built side well-built, quote, side in San Diego, as opposed to a fatigued one in Seattle, and they got schmacked. So what can you tell us about this one?
I think, well, the cool thing to start with is San Diego already has more wins in Salt Lake than Seattle has in the last decade, so that's pretty cool.
That's very cool,
That's pretty cool. I think this game very easily could have been 3-3. Marshchuk and Peel both missed what I would consider sitters. Honestly, Marshchuk missed 2 of them. Salt Lake plays really, really, really well in their little triangles, right? And that's really where they were thriving at the very beginning of the game. So really, Salt Lake dominated that game for the first 30 minutes or so. The momentum shifted when Marshchuk missed his sitter in the 30th minute. And since then, the game really opened up and San Diego was able to start to get running. I have another missed sitter by Diogo. That's who it was. It was not Peel. It was Diogo who missed a sitter as well. And then the first goal from San Diego was an overlapping goal from Negri in the 42nd minute. And it's always, like I said with the long way, it's always nice to see a wing back or a left back. In that case, Negri's a left back. Get into the box and score goals. You see guys like Ryan Hollingheads do it all the time, and it's pretty fun to see. Andrew Dwyer might be him. The dude just keeps finding ways to get on the goal sheet. And what I really noticed from the game from Real Salt Lake is they get so sloppy when they're pressing for goals, which is how you end up with a team like San Diego getting both of its goals in like its final 2 goals in extra time, the 90th minute, because Real Salt Lake was really pressing for that goal at the end of the game. And when it turns into a sprint match and they have to press for one, they're just really, really bad. Yeah. And San Diego just really arrives in transition. So that's all I got on that game.
Let's move over to Dallas and Chicago, who had kind of another similar result, right? 3-1. Chicago coming in and showing out. What do you think about this one, Josh? I had you on this one. And here's the thing, because we're going to get into it. I had Josh watch another 0-0, unfortunately. But I wanted to at least load you with Luciano Acosta, and if not that, at least an attack in Atlanta. We'll get to the Atlanta game, but tell me, what happened in Dallas, man? Because Lucho, this was my thing. It's like Lucho can't do the defense as well, right? So what are your thoughts on this one? What are you thinking from FC Dallas and Chicago?
You gave me Lucho, which I appreciate, but he didn't end up doing anything, and it was actually Andrew Gutman who was on the score sheet. So in expectation of seeing a Lucho game where Lucho does his thing, I'm instead watching FC Dallas's wingbacks both score, and Lucho Acosta kind of strop around like he's already upset. That's probably nothing, right? It's not like he has any history of doing that, right?
No, he's always been a loyal, club person. I've only ever known him on FC Dallas.
Yeah, puts the team first, and never seems to throw any tantrums or anything. So we're just really lucky to witness a guy like this. But anyway, Chicago rocks up to Dallas, goes down 1-0 early in the second half, or was it the first half? I think it might have been the first half.
Yep,
second half. I thought so. Okay.
Oh no, second half. You're right.
Yeah, and then Chicago score 3 goals in 10 minutes, and 9 minutes technically, to completely turn the game on its head. Andrew Gutman starts things off before FC Dallas sub, I want to get his name right, Leonardo Barroso, who's only 19 years of age. He gets the goal, and then Hugo Kuipers continues his goal-scoring form and scores a penalty in the 90th minute. I know, Juan, he's your boy. You've been talking about him. He was your guy in the preseason predictions, so.
Yeah, I mean, as someone that saw Kuipers playing in Belgium, I was just begging for any MLS team, the Rapids, to bring him in And when he went to Chicago last year, I was kind of like, don't really like that for him because he's going to a shit team. But now, with Mr. Triple G, he is he's going to be lights out. So, overall, very fun game. Anything else you wanted to add about that one?
I want to say that Chris Brady saved a penalty. I know it was kind of in the 92nd minute, but he's continuing his. I don't know, would you call it a good penalty record if the other player in DC, I think it was Benteke, if he missed, does that still count as a good penalty record against Chris Brady? Because I think he's not conceded 2 out of 2 penalties so far.
Let me ask y'all real quick. Are y'all Chris Brady believers? Do y'all like him? Do y'all rate him?
Not really, no.
Daniel?
Yeah, he's young.
I do.
He's young. It's tough to be a young goalkeeper, but there are times where he's defending the goal, and it seems like he doesn't know where either of his posts are. Now that could get better with age, but I don't like it.
I'm a little 50-50 on him. I don't know what you think. What are your thoughts, Joss? He saved the penalty here, obviously, right?
Saved the penalty. It was a good save. I mean, gets his legs to it. I think he did a good job keeping his legs up and knocking the penalty away. I mean, I don't think it was that good of a penalty, but you still have to save it. I think we have to give credit where it's due. I also think that Chicago, they produced Gaga Slanina, and I think that there's a lot to say about Chicago, if they have a sort of a track record where they can put these guys into positions to succeed and eventually move on. Maybe he's the next up. Maybe Chicago Fire are becoming a goalkeeper factory for the USMNT or something like that. I like him. I think he's obviously, like Jeremy said, he's got some things that he'll hopefully grow out of as he ages. I think he could probably command his box a little better, but overall, I think, for the Fire, you really can't ask for much more.
Speaking of next man up, we saw 2 big saves from backup goalkeeper James Panamis, and yet the Portland Timbers still lost. If you heard that little groan through the airwaves, that is none other than our Timbers man, who is set to have a great season this year following the Portland Timbers. Jeremy, talk us through this 2-0 loss that the Portland Timbers just went through, where they saved 2 penalty kicks, surprisingly. Let us hear your amazing thoughts about this one.
So, entering this game, Nashville hadn't scored a single goal. And after both of those penalties were saved, I just thought this team must be cursed. And I would gladly take a 0-0 draw away from this building. It was Barbie night at Geodis Park, and there was a lot of pink in the stands, which weren't completely full because Geodis has this interesting thing where all the seats are different colors, so it looks like there's people in the stands, but there aren't people in the stands. That's the problem. So, when
it's just
I was
coyotes.
looking, it's just empty, and apparently there's just some things that the Matchday experience people are doing. They have their little guitar riff that got moved to 10 minutes before kickoff instead of right before kickoff. Some of their fans got upset at that. But those fans who paid $60 to park in one of the 10 parking lots surrounding Geodis Park, they did get their goals. They got the goals that they've been waiting 2 games for, and they got their first win of the season. I don't know how good Nashville is, but I do know that the Timbers are really bad. There's some things that can be said, they're a young team. They're still figuring it all out. They haven't had their best 11 players on the pitch at one time yet due to injuries and other absences. But you'd still expect that this team can complete more than 2 passes to each other before losing the ball. And there's one particular time in the first half. This is right before they give up the first penalty. It's an easy ground pass from Finn Sermon to Ariel Lassiter, and the ball just bounces off his foot and goes out of bounds. And when you are an MLS veteran and you've played for so many different teams, I'd expect bare minimum that you can control a ball. At the very least, you can control the ball. And that's not even getting into the defense, which I don't think they were as catastrophically bad as it has been thought. I think they have to deal with long balls better over the top, and I think that they can't. I don't think that they can. What's it called? I don't think that they can deal with like oppositions moving the ball quickly because they just end up chasing shadows all over the pitch. But that's nothing compared to when they're finally able to progress the ball into the attacking third and you have every single player standing around. Yep, there's no off-ball movement. There's absolutely, it's unbelievably static. And it's not like there aren't any dynamic runners on this team. You have Anthony, who is fast. That's like his thing. Try and find him in behind. You have David Costa, who's holding onto the ball for like a second too long, which allows Nashville's entire defense to shift over and cover the pass that you've obviously telegraphed to where the ball is going. These are basic things. And these are basic things that even teams with a bunch of new players are able to figure out. Look at what San Diego's been doing. Look at what St. Louis was able to do immediately after that summer transfer window. So it's not so much that the Timbers are bad. It's just that they aren't very good at doing the basics, and that makes them really bad. And I don't even know what to think of Nashville after this, because I think that might be one of the easiest games they play all year.
Well, I will say I did like I am a big fan of Ahmed Kazim, who came over from Elfsborg.
Yeah, he looked good.
I think he is exactly what this team needs, because for as much as it kind of does make it easier to play against the Timbers, I do think when you actually have if you look at their passing network between last week's game and this week's game, you get to actually see a shape instead of a right-sided overload, which they, did most of the time in the last match. I like to see the width here from Nashville. I think they're actually looking better. The one thing against them is they had 2.7 xG, and like two of that the bulk of that came from the penalty spot. So, and they both missed.
Can I cut in really quickly? It says the Timbers right now have the 29th lowest. They're 29th in the league in terms of XG generated. That matches. That tracks. But they're also 29th in expected goals against. A lot of that comes from those 2 penalties, and also the fact that they played for an entire game down to 10 men, pretty much. So I'm not taking a ton of stock, particularly in the defensive area, but I am certainly concerned about the attack. I'm absolutely concerned about the attack. I'm not so much concerned about the defense. I'm more concerned about the midfield. And the underlying numbers as of right now, it's still way too early in the season for those numbers to even mean anything. I don't even care where the Timbers are in the table right now because it's still way too early. I only start looking at the table after 5 games. So I'm more concerned just with the way this team is building out. And credit to Nashville, I think they found a gem in Tag Seth. Yep. He was very, very impressive too. But it's still a question of how sustainable is playing Hani Mukhtar and Sam Surridge off of each other. I still don't see the vision with that. And also, they both missed penalties in this game, which I find hilarious.
Well, you know what I also found hilarious was their fans doing the like doing a bunch of clapping. You know, like they're like waving their hands and clapping, and I'm like, that's what you do at a basketball game, my guys. Like, you know, like take a little temperature check there, because they did it both times and they missed.
Yeah, you don't do it to your own team.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that stand is right behind the goal too. Like in Portland, there's the north end is a little bit elevated. So when a player is standing to take a penalty kick, they're usually just looking right down the tunnel, and they're able to look directly at the goalkeeper themselves, and there really isn't anything going on behind them. I don't know what the Nashville brain was what their thought process was with that. Their brains were kind of turned off.
Jeremy, it was a very popular topic on Friday and Saturday that Hani Mukhtar might be washed. Did he do anything on Saturday to disbar that belief?
I honestly thought he looked somewhat decent, but he needs to be moved a little bit further back into the midfield. I don't think they're going to get the best of him where he's just like up against Surridge, and him and Surridge are trying to play off of each other. It works better when Mukhtar is feeding Surridge and can also make later runs into the box, which once Schaffelberg comes back, I feel like that's another player who we haven't really talked about yet. I was really concerned for a potential Schaffelberg appearance. He didn't even make the bench. If you have Schaffelberg on one side and Cossum on the other, you can drop Mukhtar back a line, because suddenly you have two very direct wingers, and you're able to make a better use of Mukhtar's ability in that 10 spot. But I wouldn't say he's washed. Missing a penalty is really funny, and I'm actually going to give him more of a benefit of the doubt on his penalty miss, because I would credit that more to a good save. I think Surridge's penalty was just terrible and really funny. I think it was more funny than Mukhtar's miss, but at the same time, I don't think that's the first penalty Mukhtar has missed, like, in the past 2 years. I think he's missed another one. I don't know when it is off the top of my head, but it was very similar to that. So, Nashville, I think their floor is still, like, relatively high, because they still have a very good defense that knows how to play with each other. But also, they are going to be playing the Portland Timbers every week. So there will be better teams that they play, and those better teams will probably be able to do more against their defense and probably have a better way of shutting down their attack. But their attack is probably the most promising it's been for the entirety of their MLS existence so far.
The same cannot be said for Austin FC, unfortunately. Going to go over to Daniel for this one, and I just wrapped up Outside the Box. Well, not, by the time everyone is listening to this, it'll be wrapped up and posted on Wednesday evening. But Daniel, what did you make of Austin here? My biggest takeaway, before we get too far, is Austin had 20 shots, and you think that's a lot, right? It was a total of 1.3 xG. So that tells me is they're shooting, but they ain't getting the looks that they need. What'd you make of this one, Josh, and how are you liking Austin and the Rapids so far?
I was just honored that you let me get the Rapids for a game. That's usually your bread and butter, so I appreciate that. I had a few things written down here. First off, that through ball that Mihailovic, I always mess up his last name. Is Jordi Mihailovic, correct?
Georgi Mihailovic, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, I always mess it up, so I'm happy you corrected me there. But that through ball that he slotted to Navarro in the 17th minute for that easy setup chip that he had, one, it was 4 passes total to set up that entire play. But that through ball was disgusting. It was one of the nicest deep through balls that I've seen all year. I didn't realize that, he kind of looked at it as like a set piece master, but I didn't realize he was that good of a facilitator. And I was happy he was able to show that off against Austin. The biggest note that I have written down here is there were 2 balls that were hit right off the post that I feel like Zach Steffen lets in 2024 that he did not let in against Austin. One happened in the 19th minute, and it was saved into the side, into the crossbar, and then bounced out, and then he was able to get on top of it. And then the second happened off of he swatted it away from the top of the crossbar. And those are two goals that I feel like he lets in. I feel like the only upside that I saw from Austin is at the end of the game, they had plenty of opportunities to level. They were just very, very wasteful with their shot selection. And I think Bukhari, given the right system and setup and players around him, could be a legitimately nice player in this league. And I thought he showed flashes of that against Colorado. The big takeaway, I guess, if you're an Austin fan, is you like to think that you probably got screwed out of two pens, one in the first half, one at the end of the game. But those clearly, I mean, they went to VAR for a reason. Those weren't pens, and you really shouldn't be relying on those kind of plays with the kind of players you brought in to beat the Colorado Rapids to begin with. So I thought it was a really, really good game by the Colorado Rapids. And Jordy Mihailovic, I probably just butchered it again. I apologize. is a very, very, very good player.
We need a Duolingo lesson
yes.
for MLS names.
MLS Duolingo would go crazy.
Which is funny because I've been watching him for 4 years now in like multiple different like facets, because he's been with the U.S. men's national team. He's been in the MLS. I mean, I started watching him when he was with Montreal, and I still can't pronounce his name. So yeah, that says more about me than it does his name, honestly.
All I know is we got to get all the Polish names in there, because what's the big Kasper Shabilko? Y'all remember that guy?
Gosh, I love that name.
That name is crazy.
What do you think of the Zach Steffen take? Do you agree that those might be two goals that he lets in 2024, and maybe he's taken that rightful next step in 2025?
I mean, as I said on the Burgundy Banter episode, I'm a big Zach Steffen hater. I was a big Zach Steffen hater all of last year, and so I'm willing to come down off that haterade ledge and admit that he has been superb. It comes with the added defense. I think he had mentioned that, there's less of him having to come out and, be a part of play, and he can just be a stay-at-home keeper kind of. It kind of goes back to not everyone has to play it out the back, right? And so, for me, I mean, I think that's a very valid take, because it looks like he's a lot more focused. It looks like he's a lot more prepared for a season with the Rapids. I always say maybe the European guys come back with a bit of a hangover of like, oh man, I'm not in the hotbed of the sport anymore in Europe, and now I gotta adjust to the to the grueling wonders of Major League Soccer and the travel and all that. And so if he's already, I mean, he's got a whole year to readjust to that. If that's out of his bag, then only good things for Zach Steffen here. My big thing here outside of the Rapids is Austin. Again, I said you can have your Vasquez, you can have your Murto Zunis, you can have your Bukhari's. If you don't have someone that can find them the ball, and a lot of people are saying, oh, they're missing Driussi. Driussi was not a creative playmaker. He was a spot shooter, more of a striking, attacking 10 that kind of needed service as well. And so, for me, I look at that midfield between Pereira and and Ilya Sanchez. Between both of them, they're both stay-at-home, kind of cover the midfield, find that next ball into the wide channels and half spaces, but they're not guys that are going to get the ball and then get a perfect pinpoint pass in behind or find your attacking midfielder there. So Estevez, man, it's kind of a rough one there. Anything else on that one, Daniel, before we move on?
Just on the Sebastian Driussi point, he's actually struggling pretty bad down in River Plate right now. So it's probably better that, one, he didn't want to be there. So that's a locker room problem to begin with. But he kind of seems like he's past it to begin with. So I don't really buy that excuse, honestly. And you're right, he was never really a playmaker. He was always just a flashy goal scorer, in my opinion.
Good finisher. I will say he's a good finisher.
Yes. Very good finisher.
Speaking of disgruntled Argentine 10s, let's head over to Cincinnati, who used to have one of those. Jeremy, I got you on this one. Toronto, as you said, looking like the worst team in the league. I do want to play the devil's advocate very badly for Toronto, because you look at their XG and they're letting in these crazy goals. They had kind of a rotated back line here just because they had some injuries and some suspensions, I believe. But Cincinnati take care of business. Jeremy, what'd you make of this one?
Here's the thing about Cincinnati. They tried something different in this one. They lined up with a back four instead of their usual back three under Pat Noonan.
That they did.
Yeah, it kind of worked. And although it took a penalty for them to take the lead, they were still the better team, as they should be. I still think they're a Shield contender. But other than that, I still don't see where it is for Toronto, even though they did rotate their back line. It's about their attack.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about the XG. Toronto generated 0.25 XG from 6 shots, only 1 on target in this game. And that was against a Cincinnati team that's playing a completely different formation than their old reliable that they usually play with the back three. So, I'm still very concerned about Toronto. This game, once again, does nothing to change my perception of either team because Cincinnati recognized that Toronto was weak, that they could rotate, and they did, and they still got the 3 points at home. So, I'd say a pretty routine win for Cincinnati, even if they didn't do it under normal circumstances. Their big test is tonight against Tigres. That game hasn't kicked off yet, or it's about to kick off based on the time that we're recording. So, it just did kick off, actually. So, that's the game that they really need to play for, and that's the game they really need to win, rather than just taking a routine 3 points from Toronto. So, they were focused on the next week and their midweek game, and they took care of business on the weekend. That's pretty much all.
Let's head over to, I'm going to get both of them out the way. We had 2 0-0 draws, and thankfully we have our 0-0 expert, Joss, on one of them. When we do these games, when we kind of, like when I say I gave you this one, the fellas here have allowed me to kind of distribute the matches. Last week, I gave Josh the 0-0 between San Diego and St. Louis. This week, he got the 0-0 between Atlanta and Red Bulls. Before we get into that one, I do want to say the 0-0 between Columbus and Houston was a classic case of Columbus just passing the ball around. I don't know if we have to get too much into that. Houston didn't really make a issue in the back line for another week, and that one was, that one was just a very meh 0-0. Josh, what can you tell us about your 0-0? Was it at least a little bit better than last week's?
Well, I want to address, I think I did something to Juan in a past life, and that's why he keeps giving me the 0-0s, and I want to apologize. Hopefully now we're good. I guess we'll see, but hopefully now you and I, we're good, right? And maybe we can address this later. Maybe I'll get a Sporting KC 0-0 because at least we'll have a point at that point. That'd be nice. But about this Atlanta and New York Red Bulls game, the Red Bulls last week beat Nashville 2-0 at home, and they actually changed systems in this game, going from a 4-back to a 3-back, which I thought was kind of interesting. Valencia played even though he's more of a left back, he kind of played more in the midfield. I mean, he got subbed off after halftime, but he kind of played more in the midfield. Carlos Miguel is. I've talked about Takaoka. I think Carlos Miguel is another great keeper that I just don't know if he gets the plaudits that he deserves outside of maybe the Red Bulls spaces. But I've really enjoyed him, and I think his beard is fantastic. So
you mean Coronel?
Points for that.
Coronel?
Oh yeah, sorry. No, yeah, sorry, I do.
You want to talk
Carlos
about
Coronel.
Miggy though, right? Miguel Almiron?
I do want to talk about because Juan, you can fill me in on this. Or jump in here, but I was really expecting a lot more from Almiron so far. 1 assist isn't bad, but given how he left, I know it was years ago, but given how he left, And given that he's still only 30, I'm probably expecting a little more from Miguel Almiron. But that whole front four of Atlanta is like the most expensive front four in history, in MLS history at least. So it's kind of a 0-0 is more of a disappointing result because you're expecting so much from these players that you paid so much for, and maybe they'll get it going as they get more reps. But I'm really expecting more, and as someone who had Atlanta Shield, that doesn't fill me with confidence when your $25 million striker goes 2 games in a row without scoring a goal. Yeah. What do you think?
I think there is an Alexei Miranchuk-sized hole in this in Miguel Almiron's position, because I think if you were to give me Miguel Almiron in Miranchuk's role and just get Jean de Silva, get Edwin Mosquera out there instead of Miranchuk, then you'd have 2 really lethal attacking, dynamic attackers in Saba Labjanidze, and then on the other side, between Mosquera and Jean de Silva, both of them are very fast, pacey, not always reliable in the final third. But at this point, is Alexei Miranchuk really that guy for you? He's just too slow on this team, and that's really what it comes down to. For me,
yeah, I think I agree. I think you don't have to have elite top level speed to play as the 10. I don't think Evander, for example, is an elite sprinter or anything by any means, but it is more. But if you have to be able to substitute that for something, and Miranchuk substitutes that for
mid.
What exactly? What the tweet format that's like, when I think of Hazard, I think of the dribbles. When I think of Neymar, I think of the skills. When I think of Salah, I don't think of anything. That's kind of what I have with Miranchuk. When I think of Almiron, I think of the smile and the celebrations and the goals. When I think of Latte Lath, I think of like bullet headers and scoring off those corners against Montreal, or off that corner against Montreal. When I think of Miranchuk, can't really visualize anything. And I think I agree. Do you think that Atlanta need to go out and splash more on or do you think that they have the answers within their ranks? They just need to start putting them in the positions to succeed.
I think it's the latter. And then before we move on, because I want to point out this, Noah Ilas shot in the 66th minute that hit off the woodwork, and from then on for 24 minutes, neither team got a shot off. Not even off target, not even on target. So it's much more than just they're not scoring. The last the last half of the second half featured literally next to nothing for Atlanta there. So if it's not, because they have the firepower, they're kind of in the Austin situation where, yes, we spent big on our attack, but now we don't have the midfield, gravitas to move it up to our attack. And so it's going to be an interesting one there. Let's move over to NYC versus Orlando. I got Daniel on that one. A nice, tidy 2-1 win for New York. My biggest thing still coming out of New York is the baseball field is just way too small still, and that's just kind of NYC's thing. But Daniel, what'd you make of this match between two likely playoff teams in New York and Orlando?
Yeah, I mean, what more can be said about baseball, soccer, Juaners? First, I just want to say, Callum Williams, the British announcer. I don't know, when I watch games where he's calling them, it makes me feel like I'm watching a Premier League game, and it makes me happy, and I don't know why. So we need less Taylor Twellmans and more Callum Williams calling our games for whatever reason. Yeah, I had a few interesting notes on this. The first one is Alonso Martinez had the slowest goal of all time in the 58th minute, and it's starting to look and reflect poorly on our very, very poor Pedro Galese, who has been one of the best keepers in the MLS for quite some time. I'm going to get back to that here in a second, but I don't want to miss this next note. That's the conversation we need to have. Okay, so Luis Muriel, who runs a little bit too much like Luis Suarez anymore, finally gets his goal in the 68th minute. Funny fact about Luis Muriel, he is 7th in the MLS in expected goals right now, and you would not guess that by watching Orlando play.
Mm-mm.
I don't perceive Orlando as a playoff team anymore. They are
Ooh.
so bad on defense, guys. They are really, really, really hard to watch. They got absolutely mauled in their own third against NYCFC. Their press, and maybe it's because of the narrower field. I don't know what it was, but their press made Pedro Galese look really, really, really bad. Because their 2 goals that they had came off of balls that got bounced back by Pedro Galese. He parried them back. But I don't think that's his fault, considering how many saves he actually need to make in the game. So yeah, that's my big takeaway. NYCFC swarms the ball. They continue to be a team that has no star power, even though they have star power allure. They continue to be made fun of consistently for playing in a baseball stadium, but they continue to play above the level that everybody expects them to, just in how they play. Very, very, very dangerous pressing. Orlando's defense is just really, really bad. And that was my biggest takeaway. It's really, really, really hard to score goals consistently in transition or through possession or through, just your passing sequences if you're constantly trying to bail out your midfield and constantly trying to bail out your back line. So they've been exposed these first 3 weeks. Like we mentioned against Toronto, they didn't even look good against Toronto. They just kind of played their way into a win. But yeah, their defense is going to struggle against some of these better teams in the East, against your Miamis, against your NYCFCs, against your Red Bulls, even your Charlottes, your Atlantas. So, I mean, I could see them not making the playoffs because I just don't know how Pedro Galese bails them out of this, honestly.
I want to play devil's
I wanna
advocate
say-
here. Well, what's up, Josh? I'll let you go first.
I just want to say, baseball soccer sounds like something your PE teacher would make you play in like
Hell yeah.
the 9th grade.
Baseball, soccer,
That's
baby.
just called kickball.
They'd be,
Yeah.
They'd be like, I don't know, we got a fucking bat, we got a ball. It just sounds like something your PE teacher, who's also your football coach, makes you play.
And your civics teacher.
And you're, yeah. Just sweaty as hell sitting in that classroom. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, I want to come to Orlando's defense here because they are missing another Peruvian in Wilder Cartagena, who is out for the season. And, between Atuesta and Araujo, I think that's the same player. And neither of them are as good against the ball as Cartagena. So for me, it's like, you kind of have to put in more of a defensive dog between the two of them because I like what both of them bring in the buildup for Orlando. It's just they're both playing the same role without one of them being, much better defensively. And I do think they are. I do rate the defense because Alexander Freeman's coming in as a young starter. He is a fucking beast, dude. If he scored some goals against Toronto here, he kind of passenger, and to much of Daniel's assessment, I typically did agree they looked lackadaisical here, but I think it's just because they're missing the midfield guy more so than the back line shape or anything like that. Before we move on, Jonathan Shore, 17-year-old, and this is the one good thing I like about New York City is they are one of the youngest teams in MLS. They are willing to give minutes to people like Jonathan Shore, who I think is only 17 years old. And so, I mean, we've seen it, this youth kind of push in NYCFC. I'm a big fan of it. Still think they need somebody more than Maxi Morales in there to do the job for them. But overall, solid performance from New York City. The same cannot be said for Joss's team. There was a little bit of a mention earlier. 3-loss team in Montreal. Well, the Western version of that is SKC. They head over to DC United and lost 2-1. Joss, tell us about another underperforming Russian player like Moranchuk.
Oh my god!
This time,
Well, firstly, the LA Galaxy also haven't won. They're below us in the standings. So hold on.
That's true. My bad.
But it is funny because I think man for man they are a better team than we are. Right. Let me touch on Shapi Suleimanov. I'm pretty sure that's how we pronounce it. He is the underperforming Russian player that Juan touched on, and I'll just say this: do any of you guys remember Johan Quase?
Who?
At all? Yeah, he was one of our DPs in like 2018. He was He was our number 10. He was French, very left-footed.
What's his name?
And Johan Quase.
Johan Quase?
Yeah, Croizet. Yeah, I remember him.
Yes. Thank Jeremy. Jeremy, you're a sicko, man.
He was not good.
Can you spell that for me? Who the fuck?
Yeah. YOHAN space CROIZET. I'm not even sure there's any like videos of him playing for us.
I don't even remember
like
him getting an assist.
Sounds like a NPC on like a creative team.
What's the opposite of streets will remember this player? It's like, would it be the man, I've never seen this player. What the hell?
Suburbs have forgotten.
I like that. We're gonna coin that.
That's very funny.
And take over.
That's
the world.
very funny.
But tell us
I like that a lot.
Tell us how he relates to Croizet.
So Shapi is left. He's very left-footed, like Quase was. And they play in a similar position. They kind of have a similar body type. Now, granted, as far as I know, Shapi has not said the N-word, and Quase. Let's just say that there is that is a comparison that's where it doesn't match. That it doesn't match up there. I'll just say that.
I guess it's a good thing I don't know who this guy is, because MLS probably scrubbed him. They gave him the Chris Benoit treatment there, but
for real. And I made a meme in the middle of the game because it was basically you can kill the man but not the idea, and it was a picture of Johan Quase and then a picture of Shapi.
That's what that was.
Yes. And yeah, I think that fully explains it. He hasn't been that impressive. I think we're doing a lot we're obviously trying to replace Johnny Russell, club legend, left-footed inverted winger, can cut in and bend the ball. Has obviously got a very good left foot. And in the first 2 games that Shapi's played, can't really say that's had any. He's been replaced. In fact, Shapi gave away the penalty, which led to DC United tying the game before, obviously, they scored to win. So that's my underperforming player. Speaking of another underperforming player is Dejan Joveljic. Literally after I posted that Quase Shapi meme, I posted the screen cap of I Show Speed stats from the Sidemen charity game. He got an 8.6 with a goal and an assist. And then I posted Joveljic's foot mob stat. 5.7. Now, for all of you who don't use foot mob, you start out at 6. And you can lose points by doing poorly. You can gain points by doing well, like scoring goals. Joveljic lost 0.3 points to drop to a 5.7. I don't know he's playing like Alan Pulido did.
Yeah, I was about to say, you can kill the man, but not the idea, and that's the striker. Because right now, the last I checked, the lowest goals added is actually Dejan Joveljic. I'll have to double check that. It was either last week or this week he was the lowest goals added player. So,
golly, I don't even know that.
Just like Pulido. Pulido had 2 seasons where he was the most underperforming player in terms of goals added for SKC, 2 separate seasons being the worst player there. So I don't know if that's something to be said about the striker position, but I think if you're a striker in form, you go to Peter Vermees's team to frickin' fall off a cliff. That's all I'm gonna say there. Because
I think you're right. Everyone was pointing to this DC game as the game where Sporting KC to show up, because up until this point, all the communications from the team were basically, we haven't had a full week of practice. Let us practice. We're talking about practice. Are you kidding me? I can't. There was no coherent idea of what was going on. I don't know why we play Eric Tommy as a winger. I know he scored, but he didn't score from cutting it off the wing. He also is the reason. I mean, I like Eric Tommy a lot. He lost his man. I can't remember who scored for DC. I'll have to
Jose Kijima.
It's the Japanese player. Yes, the one from St. Louis that got traded to San Diego and then to DC, right?
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing about Kijima is he played deeper. He played as a holding midfielder in that 4-2-3-1. So I do like him a lot more there, but I don't know what that means for Matty Peltola, who is, for me, kind of a bust. But yeah, I also agree. I don't know what Tommy's doing as a winger. I don't know either. I mean, that should be Shallowy's spot personally.
Yeah.
I think Radoja should be in the midfield. I mean, if it's between Ndembe Basong or Radoja, I think only one of them really should be in that holding midfield position. You get Shallowy out there and Tommy, and I think that's at least a cohesive unit there. But I mean, I'm just gonna throw this on Mr. Peter Vermees, honestly. But
I am
tell me,
too.
man, what do you think?
He was outcoached. Vermees was outcoached. I do want to shout out Manu Garcia. I think Manu Garcia is a very tidy little player. And I mean, leading up into this game, I think he had this is one of those stats that's like, okay, how do you even know that? But he had the most shot creating actions in the league, as well as fourth in progressive passes, fourth in take-ons, and ninth in successful passes into the penalty area. I'm excited to see more of him. I think that he's the reason that Tommy is out on the wing is because Manu Garcia is a 10. He cannot translate out to the wing. That's not his game. So we've moved Tommy out there because he's the captain. He has to play. Put him out on the left because Shoppy Suleimanov is he's an inverted winger. You know how much Peter Vermees loves inverted wingers. So there's I think of Peter Vermees tactical masterclass for him includes just telling them to switch sometimes, and then he's like, okay, my job's done.
You're not scoring from that end. Just switch, buddy.
Yeah, just switch, guys. What are we doing? As for DC, I felt like DC. It was a very boring game. I felt like DC, however, they clearly were the team. Christian Benteke is still doing it at 34. I know he scored a penalty, but even his overall hold-up play is just magnificent. At 34 years of age, he's still out here killing it. So, I mean, DC just nailed it with the signing of Benteke, and I really, really thought that defensively, DC looked really, really strong. Now, again, is that because Sporting KC couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag in attack? Maybe. That might be it. But I think there's credit where it's due. DC United were very strong defensively, and I hope that they can maybe just I want to see more of Benteke. I know he won the Golden Boot last year. I think that he's got another Golden Boot-esque run in him and I've always liked Benteke. I've always thought that he was a player, so it's cool to see him do this. So good on DC. Sporting Kansas City, yeah.
In the bin you go.
I think so. Frauds of the year.
Can I share something about Sporting Kansas City? Because
Always.
I don't know what the thought process was to bring in not just Joveljic, but also Mason Toy, who, when the salary release comes out, I imagine is going to take up a significant salary, have a significant budget charge, and require a fair amount of GAM to get the roster compliant. I don't see the vision there. And I know that Vermees isn't in charge of building the roster anymore, but it's just like, why? Why is so many resources being dedicated to just one position when the coach is only going to play one of them at a time? It's not like he's going to try for a two-striker setup. He's so set in his ways that he's done the same thing for years and years.
Yeah.
I'm just really confused with that, and I think more than anything, they just need a right back so they can move Jake Davis to the midfield. But
that's what I thought Brody was going to be, or Kyrie Shelton, my goat.
I think Brody was out. At least for this one, he was out on the injury report.
Yeah, and also
he and Shelton were both questionable.
Brody, by the way, I'm going to mention this every time his name comes up. If you look at his Wikipedia page, there's a little section there about the Andrew Brody. God, Adrian Brody. I keep doing that. The Andrew Brody fan club for RSL fans who relentlessly boo every time he's not in the starting lineup and cheer every touch of the ball that he has. And
we need to start doing that.
Special. I think that's special. I also don't know why they got rid of him, but also I don't think RSL really knows what they're trying to do. But enough about RSL. SKC, Josh, I do want to ask you a quick question, because this schedule coming up is interesting, very interesting, as I pull it up on my phone here. They haven't won a lot of games. That's a lot of red. But they have 4 of the next 5 at home. And the only road trip there is against Dallas. Now, in that time, they will be hosting Minnesota. That's this weekend. They will be facing LAFC at home. Then they go to Dallas. Then they host St. Louis, which we don't know what that...
banger.
We don't really have a good name for that rivalry yet. And then they finish against the Portland Timbers. So, which of those teams, besides the Timbers, are they beating? Because they're going to beat the Timbers. We just need to... I want to see which of those other 4 games are winnable.
I have to choose one.
Yeah.
Oh, God. And honestly, it might be the away game. It might be the game in Dallas. LAFC aren't
fatigue.
the LAFC of old.
CCC fatigue.
True, and they've had such a roster turnover, and Olivier Giroud is
buns.
bad. Yeah.
Don't skip ahead with LAFC. We'll get there.
Yeah. Sorry, Minnesota. I don't think we'll score against Minnesota. Like, they are this. I said this last week. They're the Stoke City this year. They don't concede very many. And like Daniel brought up when he was talking about them, they have Michael Boxall. He's their Rory Delap. He's their long throw expert. And we don't handle balls into the box very much. So I really don't see us beating Minnesota. I don't see us beating LAFC. It might be the away game. It might be Dallas.
Do you think Vermees is still at a job if they lose both of the...
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing.
Sorry for interrupting, but yeah. I do. He had a whole segment in that MLS, what was onside or whatever, that Apple TV put out. What was about last season?
Yeah, the Onside, the documentary.
It was Onside. Yeah, and basically they were talking about SKC and St. Louis, and he said basically why I wasn't fired is because, the same coach is going to come in and have to deal with the exact same players, so you can either fire me and waste your time hiring somebody else, or who's going to come into the same issue, or just keep me and let me figure it out. I know. I'm like, I wish I could do that. What the fuck?
Man.
What are you talking about?
I also do think there's a name for the... I don't know if Joss approves of the name, but isn't it the match between St. Louis and SKC the Derby Q?
I like Darby Q. I'll be honest. I like Darby Q a
I like
lot.
it
I think
too.
it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
was
say
not
Darby
aware
Q.
of this. I like that.
Yeah, I like it too. I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's cringe, dude." It's Major League Soccer.
It's all
I mean,
cringe.
Like-
come on. If we're talking like cringe rivalry trophies, that belt they have in the Southeast. Like, what even is that?
Yeah.
It gets
Exactly.
bleak enough. If it gets bleak enough, Joss, I'm gonna start like a trend on Twitter that's like tank for whatever. Like they know how they like college football teams will have good enough players that the NFL will be like tank for Tua, tank
Yes.
for Trevor. I'm gonna start doing that with the MLS Super Draft. Just some
Dude,
random
who-
college dude. Tank for Sam Bassett.
Oh my god,
Tank
bro.
for number 1
don't know.
allocation.
I don't know what to do, man. It's we even talked to Duncan McGuire when he was in the draft, but we decided to not sign him because he didn't know enough about the club.
Hey, that was a good move for him because, as I said, if you're a striker and you go play for Peter Vermees, your production's going to plateau.
And he was in the academy.
Oh, really?
Academy.
And
He was
didn't
at
know
Sporting
about the
Omaha.
club? Damn.
That's
Nice.
tough.
I know. He didn't know about the club, and he was in it, bro. Anyway, I've talked enough about SKC. Sorry about that. I took up a lot of time, but
No
Yeah.
worries. No
I
worries.
think it's probably that Dallas, Jeremy. That's probably the I have the most faith on, and it's bad that it's the away game.
I'll have some more to mention about DC. I'm still kind of looking at them, side-eyeing them a bit because I want to believe in it, but let me see some more. Let me see some more, right? Good
Feel more.
a good win for them though at home here, and maybe Kansas City will bounce back with another practice narrative. This time we get to practice at home, so maybe that'll change it for them. Let's head over to our final game of the week. There's 2 teams in the middle of CCC rotation in Seattle and LAFC. We can officially confirm now. I think we had Jeremy hate watching in the background. We can confirm now.
Boy.
They're gone, right? They're
they're-
eliminated.
Let's just say that the Seattle Sounders went to Mexico City for one reason. That joke never gets old. It never does. They went to Portland 2 years ago for one reason too. However, it doesn't hit the same when it says that LAFC went to Lumen Field 5-2 reasons or 2-5. It doesn't work with that. It only works with the 4-1. So I heavily blame I heavily blame LAFC for allowing that 5th goal and then David Martinez for scoring the other one because it ruins the perfect 4-1.
I mean, let's talk about that match. It was kind of a cagey start in the first half. It kind of felt like, oh yeah, these teams are just resting or not resting, but I mean it's like teams in the middle of CCC, like we saw it with Columbus. They know how to like really drag the games out. And by the end of this, I mean we had 1-1 in the first half. Kalani Rienzi with a great strike. Nathan Ordaz on the other end, equals it up. We're going 1-1 to halftime, and then bang, 5-2 full time. This one, more or less, I'm just gonna kind of blame on LAFC fatigue. They really wanted to slow this one down and kind of play their usual style. But I'll just bring it. I mean, since it's the last game, does anybody want to really take the reins here? I know we have a running. They can't keep getting away with this in Mr. Jeremy's notes. There, he's the ultimate Seattle hate watch. But I don't know. I didn't mind the way they played here, and given the CCC stuff, it was a lot more entertaining than I had thought it would be. I'll open up to you guys though. What did y'all think of this one?
I would like to first confirm the updates to the they can't keep getting away with this meter.
Let's hear
Some
them.
of these have been canceled out because it's very bold for the Seattle Sounders to use up all their goals on the weekend instead of spreading them out, because every team is given a finite amount of goals. Like this is known, this is a fact, and it's up to you as to whether or not which games you choose to use them in. and they decided not to use them in the CONCACAF game tonight. So for that, not very smart, guys. Maybe you don't need to score 2 extra goals against LAFC. You really needed them tonight. But in this game, I noted first of all how their second-year draft pick, Kosa Rienzi, was the best player on the pitch against LAFC.
I liked him a lot.
Yeah, how the hell does that happen? Really? Like that's ridiculous. In that first half, they had 1 shot on target, 1 goal. And it was Kosa Rienzi's chance. Also into this, when you're rotating for CCC, it doesn't really matter goalkeeper-wise to rotate your goalkeeper. LAFC did that anyway. And so Seattle Sounders scored 5 goals against LAFC's backup goalkeeper. And
Thomas Hasal.
Based on Thomas Hasal, yes, former Vancouver goalkeeper. He's not very good. Certainly not that good in general, but I would qualify him as very bad after this game. So here's the thing really to take away with the Seattle Sounders after this game. They beat a very rotated LAFC side that had no idea what they wanted to do when they got the ball. It only took it really took the introduction of David Martinez for them to actually realize, hey, maybe we can go forward with this instead of just hanging out in the middle of the field and letting Seattle press us to death. Seattle, once again, this showed up how good their squad depth is, which none of us on here debated. I don't like the Seattle Sounders. I can understand that they have one of the deepest squads that I've ever seen in MLS in terms of just not just like the veterans who they've brought in from other MLS teams, but just the strength of their development pathway and being able to turn to guys like a Danny Leyva, who started this game and was very, very, very good. And for a couple seasons has been the odd man out in that midfield and is actually finally getting some chance to show his worth now that they've traded Josh Atencio away. And so
he's in the Rapids now.
They have an unbelievable player pathway, and that's what you saw more than anything in this game. Jordan Morris comes on the pitch, he scores the goal. He's now their all-time record goal scorer, which I think he's the least hateable Seattle Sounder. Not only because he never scores against the Timbers, he hasn't scored a goal against the Timbers since the Obama administration, mind you. But because he is a local kid and he makes some of the worst people in the world, people who only follow the U.S. men's national team, very angry. And he's just like, it's fine. I'm okay with watching Jordan Morris do good things. He's also come back from 2 ACL tears. And that's something that should be applauded. He's the only player on this team that I don't outright despise. And if he wasn't playing for the Seattle Sounders, I would root for him. And it's very cool that he is now their all-time record goal scorer. That's awesome, frankly. And it should be talked about a little more, even though it's already been talked about plenty. But yes, I find that fantastic. LAFC, meanwhile, I'm really concerned by, first of all, their squad depth, because I've been told by a lot of people, most notably Kalen Kyle, that LAFC has some of the best squad depth in the entire league. I didn't see that on this pitch. I saw Seattle's depth beat LAFC's depth by a score of 5-2. So I'm not convinced at all by LAFC's depth. I'm not convinced by Olivier Giroud still. I feel like if you're going to install a counter-attacking style, you're completely wasting what Giroud is best at, which is holding up the ball and being an asset in possession. And LAFC, you are probably outside of Miami, you have the biggest budget in the West. You're able to go get whoever you want. Why are you playing such defensive, like, cowardly soccer for a team of your stature? That's what pisses me off more than anything.
They're playing like Charlotte
and
FC
I understand,
out there.
I understand giving Bouanga a rest.
Damn.
I understand giving Martinez a rest. I don't understand giving Lloris a rest. But you got to be a little bit more proactive. And right now, I don't think I've seen enough from LAFC that is like they're a wonderful, very good team. I think they're very solid defensively, but once again, I want to see how serious that injury to Marlon is. That I think that's a big loss for them, especially if they're still committed to playing this back three. So, yeah, I think I came away from this game not so much as impressed with Seattle, because to be honest, this is a game they just should be winning, and it was a game I expected them to win, even though it would have been really funny if they lost, because it's always funny when they lose, like they lost tonight. I think it says more about just how LAFC isn't as good as everyone thinks they are, and how everyone just has this perception that they're LAFC, they're just gonna be good. I think they need to do more shopping in the winter window, and they can't just keep waiting for summer for all of their big players to come in, because sometimes they bring in those big players in the summer and they end up being complete non-factors, like Olivier Giroud. So that's my main takeaway. Congratulations to the Sounders. That's fine. You used up too many goals, though. Gotta learn from that. In 2021, they played the Timbers. They beat the Timbers 6-2 at Providence Park. They used up all their goals in that game. Then they went into the playoffs. They faced RSL at home. They were shut out by RSL at home and lost on penalty kicks. Could have used some of those goals over there.
And RSL team that didn't have a
They've
shot.
done this before.
What was that?
It wasn't that when RSL did not have a single shot.
Not a single shot. No, did not.
The heritage.
Unbelievable heritage. You really have to hand it to the Seattle Sounders for that one.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Jeremy. Your Seattle knowledge might surpass your Portland knowledge.
Ooh, don't say that.
Do not accuse me of knowing more about the Seattle Sounders. I know everything there is to know about the Portland Timbers, but because I see the Seattle Sounders twice a year, I know everything about them. This is just what they do.
I'm not worried about LAFC, because in the regular season you just need to be mid enough to make it to the playoffs, and they are above mid for me. I think defense is what gets you to the final dance in the end of the day. And so, Daniel, I'm kind of interested to hear what you have to say before we wrap it up. But and Josh, too, if you have anything else to add. Any closing thoughts here on Seattle and LAFC?
I think it was a battle of two of the top 5 teams in the West, but I think I'm not taking too much away from it, because I think Jeremy was 100% right. It was a battle of whose depth was greater, and Seattle's at home, granted, because it's a lot easier to win at home in the MLS than it is in any other league in the world. So at home, granted, but their depth definitely outplayed LAFC's. That being said, I mean, LAFC is a really good team and they have a full starting 11. I mean, they showed that to Columbus tonight in the CCC game, and we even got to see Sengiz Under play tonight. So, I mean, I'm excited to see how they're going to look when they start incorporating him into MLS play.
Yeah, I'm interested in that guy too.
But Seattle, I mean, so my beef with Seattle is they beefed up their roster to try to compete in your CCC and your Club World Cup, and then they went out and got embarrassed today. So it doesn't that result does not really move me against LAFC, because it negated the entire reason why they put together that roster just by getting absolutely crushed by Cruz Azul today. So yeah, very unimpressed by a 5-2 win against a LAFC rotational squad, if I'm being honest. Unmoved.
Perfectly rational response. You know, it doesn't move the needle for me one bit, because at the end of the day, this is supposed to be one of the deepest squads in the league, on par with Miami. This is just what they should be doing, especially for a home game, and especially against an LAFC team that everyone has overrated so far heading into the year. That's not saying the Sounders aren't good. I'm just saying this is an expected result. Maybe not by that scoreline, but also you see the backup goalkeeper in, and you're like, okay, yeah, they probably could score 5 goals against him. And they did.
Joss,
what hater shit you got to say, Joss?
Yeah. Anything to top us off here?
Jeremy is the Kendrick Lamar of Sounders hating. And I mean, I'm half expecting a diss track at the end. I'm not. Don't want to put any pressure on you, but I think it'd be very funny. I do want to say I watched the LAFC's first game of the season, and I was really Martinez. I think like he's such a talent, and I think that I'm glad he got on the score sheet because I think that he could really break out for LAFC this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being just like I mean, I know they rotate and everything, but like he deserves to stay in that starting line. I think he's a very good, exciting young talent. He was really the only one that made me get off my seat when I was watching them against Minnesota, their first game of the season. So glad to see him get on the score sheet, and I really hope that he kicks on. I mean, I know he scored already, but I really hope that he is able to maintain his spot in that starting lineup because I really do think he's so good.
Yeah, that goal was nasty.
With that being said, let's go ahead and wrap this sucker up. Daniel, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on X, the Everything app, at Vox Pro MLS, known as Major League Shill. Thanks, guys. Love you guys.
Josh, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Josh Bathtub, as well as on Instagram at Off to See the Wizards. If you're a sicko and you want some more Sporting KC stuff, I don't know why you would. It's all hell.
I realized I went out of order, but Jeremy, where can they find you?
You can find me on the Elon app at Sports Guy Jeremy. You can find me on Blue Sky at jeremypeterman.bsky.social. You can read my work at cascadiafc.substack.com, where I post good game previews and good game recaps of every Timbers game, because someone has to do it. And you can also keep your eye on that space for an in-depth article about one of the more polarizing players in Timberdom right now, Anthony. I'm doing a deep dive on him because I think he has never played in his best role as a Timber so far.
Agreed. I'm with you there. I'm done with wingback Anthony, personally speaking. But you can find me at Wanners715 on the Elon app, at wanners.bsky.social. Follow Box State Footy at Box State Footy. Be sure to give us a like, a review, a subscribe on our YouTube. Getting some good traction on there. And as with everything else, we'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye.